Bus expenses. Window seat or aisle?
Islam has issued a statement claiming responsibility. We hope to give you more on that later in the bulletin.
What?
Islam has issued a statement claiming responsibility. We hope to give you more on that later in the bulletin. Islam has issued a statement claiming responsibility.
Wired magazine put out this story, right? They got a hold of some of the materials that the Joint Forces Staff College course called Perspectives on Islam and the Islamic Radicalism. So there's the War College,
yeah,
and they have this Joint Forces Staff Colleges. They had a course, and so there was some problems with how they were characterizing the Islamic faith and people of the Islamic faith. What were some of the problems, Jimmy? Here are some of the problems. There was a PowerPoint presentation given by Lieutenant Colonel Matthew A. Dooley, who still has a job over there, by the way. And in his PowerPoint, it had such inflammatory material as such. It said, using the lessons of Hiroshima to wipe out whole cities at once, targeting the civilian population wherever necessary in a total war against Muslims. So that was part of it. Like, he's advocating that. Like, hey, we had to do it in Hiroshima, we might have to do it here. Here's another thing. There was a part of his presentation claimed that there was no such thing as a moderate Islam. Yes, and it's therefore time for the United States to make our true intentions clear. This barbaric ideology will no longer be tolerated. Islam must change or we will facilitate its self-destruction.
The whole mosque is down.
It's unbelievable,
yeah,
right? So this was really happening. And here's one more. I'll give you one more just to get your blood pumping. Asserting by conservative estimates, this is what this PowerPoint presentation said, asserting by conservative estimates, 10% of the world's Muslims, that's a staggering 140 million people, hate everything you stand for and will never coexist with you unless you submit to Islam.
I received this from a military officer who was a student at that school. He was concerned that this was being taught and even implied that it was doctrine. So he emailed it to me. Here's what he had to say.
This bigoted conspiracy cabal was both disgusting and so deeply un-American at its core. Those who propagate these materials and those who empower the ones who develop them should be ashamed.
Bey Shakir is an expert on Islamophobia in the U.S. He worries about the impact it could have on military operations in the greater Middle East.
The fact that the training of these soldiers has been doctored and manipulated and created with the mindset that you need to think of those brown-skinned people with those certain names and those certain livelihoods and customs as the enemy.
People in Kentucky were looking at me like I was a terrorist. Because I'm dark, I can grow a beard, you know, and I'm not as white as many as you people in the room. I'm white, but I'm not that light. So I started to feel a lot of that, like, man, people are, you know, they're worried about, they're going to hit Fort Knox in Kentucky. And I'm thinking, this is racism. This is what feeds the fuel that Iraqis are beneath us and we can go kill them.
I know we mean well by establishing the democracy or trying to in Iraq.
Get the fuck in there. They're going hard. You can kill that if you want to. You can kill that if you want to.
But when I got to Iraq in 2003, I learned a new word, and that word was Haji. Haji was the enemy. Haji was every Iraqi. He was not a person, a father, a teacher, or a worker. And it's important, we've heard this word a lot during Winter Soldier, but it's important to understand where this word came from. And to Muslims, the most important thing is to take a pilgrimage to Mecca. It's the Hajj. And someone who has taken this pilgrimage is a Haji. And it's something that in traditional Islam is the highest calling in the religion. So we took the best thing for a Muslim and made it into the worst thing.
and the historical precedents of Dresden, Tokyo, Hiroshima, Nagasaki could be applied to bring about Mecca and Medina's destruction.
It's just incredible.
So this is like the warmongering like I've never heard before.
Yeah, and it's coming from an educator in our armed forces.
The Pentagon's top officer, General Martin Dempsey, has called for a review of all military training courses. That will take some time, as the U.S. military has hundreds of schools and classes taught at facilities around the world.
I'd commend General Dempsey. I think he acted quickly on this, and it'll be investigated and hopefully rooted out. But I'm afraid Lieutenant Colonel Dooley is probably the tip of the iceberg here.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to use that exact phrase. This is the tip of the iceberg. We have been seeing this same kind of thing for years. We've been reporting Islamophobic training with the FBI, with DHS, with TSA, the CIA, all of these important institutions. It's all happening under the radar. There's a cottage industry of these Muslim bashers who are training law enforcement personnel, military personnel, counterterrorism personnel, and you're breeding a generation of leaders in our society who have this suspicion of Islam and hostility towards American Muslims and Muslims in general.
I'm sorry, but they seem to be against everything that I believe in. And so I don't want them necessarily in my neighborhood.
Because they don't totally give themselves over to MTV with TV shows telling young girls how cool it is. They have a show about how cool it is to have abortions. Because the Muslims won't give up their cultures and their family and won't give in to the corrupt banking system. They're against the usury and the rest of it. They have to be eradicated. They have to be destroyed because that culture is far superior to this corporatoid death culture.
To solidify Washington's connection with Hollywood, simply look at the films produced in cooperation with the Department of Defense, showing our men and women in the armed forces killing Arabs at random. Like Iron Eagle, where a teenager goes over and bombs up an Arab country. You know, just learns how to fly a jet overnight. And then, of course, Navy SEALs, where Charlie Sheen goes over to Lebanon and obliterates scores of Arabs.
All right, Chief. Let's go tag him and bag him.
Of all the Department of Defense films, the one that will stand the test of time as being the most racist is Rules of Engagement. The film was written by former Secretary of the Navy, James Webb. The action takes place in Yemen, a real country in the Middle East. There are violent demonstrations at the American Embassy, and the Marines, led by Samuel L. Jackson, they're called in to evacuate the American employees. And as they try to do so, the Marines open fire on the crowd and kill scores of Yemenis, including women and children. And in the investigation that follows, Tommy Lee Jones, the lawyer who represents the Samuel Jackson character, goes to Yemen to investigate. The movie leads us to believe what seems obvious, that the Marines committed this atrocity.
Armed American Marines, they were shooting at his people. They were just trying to defend themselves.
During his investigation, Jones's character sees a little girl with only one leg. He follows her, comes upon a hospital ward full of civilian victims. He finds an audio tape by the bed of one of the victims. And when the tape gets translated in court, we immediately begin changing our minds about who is responsible for this massacre.
To kill Americans and their allies, both civil and military, is duty of every Muslim who is able.
We discover that the Yemeni civilians aren't so innocent after all. It turns out they fired on the Marines first. And in a moment that will live in Hollywood infamy, we suddenly learned that the little girl we've been sympathizing with, the very girl whose humanity and innocence may have broken down our stereotypes, well, she's no better than those other Yemeni terrorists. As a result, when Samuel L. Jackson delivers the key line, "Where's the motherfuckers?" we're now on his side. Why does this matter? Because in the end, the massacre of even women and children has been justified and applauded. It's a slaughter, yes, but it's a righteous slaughter.
Sergeant Mack. Sir? Contact all stations. Mission complete.
The humanity is not there. And if we cannot see the Arab humanity, what's left? If we feel nothing, if we feel that Arabs are not like us, or not like anyone else, then let's kill them all. Then they deserve to die, right? What do Arabs think of us that see these movies? Because these movies are rented 25 cents American range. Movies showing us killing them. What do they walk away with? Does this bring us closer together? Does this advance peace, or does it separate us?
You're fired.
On the part of the unbelievers, they're conspirators. Those who have hated and opposed the monotheistic message ever since Ibrahim alayhi salam.
It's not something new. All messengers of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam were faced with a hijacking of their narrative. They were portrayed with something they weren't. Whether that portrayal started with character assassination, they were accused of having agendas other than their actual agenda, or it was merely a point of ridicule. How could you follow something so, so not even close to the truth? Whether it was words like magic or sorcery, whether it was they were accused of being liars, all of this was what? It was essentially an attempt to hijack narratives. One of the greatest examples of that are repeated in the Quran is the discourse between Fir'aun, la'anahullah, and Musa alayhi salam. قَالُوا إِنْ هَذَانِ لَسَاحِرَانِ. The narrative given by the Mala, the leaders of Fir'aun, the chiefs of Fir'aun, and his ministry, the unanimous press release was, these two are nothing but magicians. What am I talking about? Who's these two? Musa and Harun alayhi salam, they're nothing but magicians. But he didn't stop there. يُرِيدَانِ أَن يُخْرِجَاكُمْ مِنْ أَرْضِكُمْ بِسِحْرِهِمَا. They intend to get you kicked out of your land by means of their magic. They're going around to the population and telling them, not only are these guys magicians, so don't be impressed, there's nothing special. On top of that, if you do listen to them, watch out. Their real agenda is to get this land away from you. They'll get you kicked out of your land. These people are a threat to homeland security. This is what they are.
Salvation, as you heard a moment ago, is something that no Muslim has. Listen, church, no Muslim has for sure unless they blow themselves up in martyrdom.
What? And here I want to just ask you to ponder for a moment. This is the same Fir'aun who in other places in the Quran he says, أَلَيْسَ لِي مُلْكُ مِصْرَ? Don't I alone exclusively own the dominion of Egypt? وَهَذِهِ الْأَنْهَارُ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِي, and these rivers flow beneath my feet. He used to speak of the ownership of Egypt and his kingdom above it for himself exclusively. But when he saw that Musa alayhi salam and his message is gaining power, and people are actually starting to listen, he couldn't tell people, don't listen to him because he'll take away my land. He had to change the narrative and say, no, 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 he's not a threat to me, he's a threat to your land. This is your land too. Well, we're all in this together. They weren't in this together before. So if you really love your land, and if it's part of you, it's part of your identity is to love the land that you belong to, and you have any sense of patriotism, then part of your patriotism will be to hate this message. You can't love this message. You can't even be attracted or consider this message, because that would be being a traitor to your own country. So the narrative is made that either you love your country, you love your people, you love your tribe, you love Mecca, you love your fellow family members of Quraysh, you love your beloved, your glorious history and past, or you consider Islam. Because the two cannot go together in this hijacked narrative. It's one or the other.
It was at the mosque in Texas where Imam Osama met his future wife, Ivy.
I was raised Methodist.
You, shortly after 9/11, decided to convert.
Correct.
For many people,
Yeah.
converting to Islam would be the last thing they would do.
Well, I think that anyone that has ever known someone that is Muslim and would hear the things that were being said, it just didn't make sense.
Everybody knows who's trying to kill us, and it's like we can't say it.
So I picked up a book, and then I picked up another one, and until I read the Quran. And then I contacted the local mosque in my area. I've had a couple of comments because I am an American Muslim. Some people feel like you're a traitor. How could you become one of them?
To this day, I have friends that recently became Muslim. You know what they're told by their families? How could you be a traitor to America? How could you do that? What kind of an American are you? You became Muslim? The religion of the enemy? See what an amazing job they've done? You got to commend them. SubhanAllah.
Now, I was hoping that my good buddy Nu'man Ali Khan would be here by now, and he's not here. I want to talk about him. Because Sheikh Nu'man Ali Khan, are you in the audience? You got to hurry up, get up here. I want to talk about you. Because Sheikh Nu'man Ali Khan, you know him? Beautiful brother? Well, be careful. He's the new terrorist. Oh, yeah. Now, you know, by the way, any of you want to make money? The sure way right now, the greatest industry to make money is to write a book against Islam. Guaranteed to make money. So Bridget Gabriel wrote a book called They Must Be Stopped. A Survivors of Islamic Terror. And in this book, she names one of the new terrorists. Nu'man Ali Khan. And why? Why is it terrorist? You know what I did? I got the book, I read it, I turned on the index, and I looked for the usual names. Okay, Siraj Wahaj, all right. I know Siraj Wahaj, he's a terrorist, I know. But then I saw Nu'man Ali Khan. I said, wait a minute. Page 105. Oh boy, here's the evidence. Nu'man Ali Khan, the new terrorist, what did he say? Listen carefully. He said, preparation for death in a sermon. Preparation for death, that's it?
See what an amazing job they've done? You got to commend them. SubhanAllah. That the two things have been made polar opposites. And people are really truly convinced of this narrative. And these two prophets, these messengers of yours, they're going to get rid of your perfect lifestyle that everybody else loves. The whole world wants to be like us, and these people want to get rid of it. وَيَذْهَبَ بِطَرِيقَتِكُمُ الْمُثْلَى. Does that sound familiar at all? SubhanAllah.
It's also said that his group is promoted by some hidden societies just to demonize the Muslims. Do you think there's any reality in that, Sami?
Yeah, I think it's a strong possibility, because you look at the things he says and he gets away with it. Like, you have to think, this can't just be a coincidence. Why is he always being put on the front lines in the media? Who's promoting him? If anyone else said what he was saying, they'd probably be arrested by now. And he gets away with all of this. And it just conveniently happens to fit with the stereotype of Muslims. And they put him on the front line. So there could be a connection that he is probably being set up. Like, he probably doesn't even know it, maybe indirectly or directly, but I believe without a doubt he's being used for that, him and his followers.
Out of a whole basket of apples, just one bad apple has been picked and showed to the will of the whole box.
Him because he says what they want him to say.
We see some strange incidents, and forget about conspiracy theories. It's not even a conspiracy theory. He has admitted in front of the press that he once cancelled a demonstration because MI5 told him that there was a threat to his life. Now, what's MI5 doing in contact with him? Well, why is MI5 speak? It's special branch. It would be the police. It's the police's remit to look at this. Yeah, not MI5, but yeah, MI5 are having a special, what got them on speed dial or something. So this is something that we have to be very aware of because that group has had a history of dealings with intelligence services. If you look at many books written about the history of the relationship between the British intelligence service and various groups in England, and we see this, that this group has had such a history. So one wonders what that might be, and whether they might be used as a pawn to say that any Muslim who believes in orthodox concepts such as Khilafah and Sharia and all these different aspects are being demonized by saying, oh look, Andrew Chowdhury, he also believes in Khilafah and this, and so you and him must be the same, unless you recant your faith and you join the secular nationalistic faith of Britain with all the values of which we will arbitrarily dictate to you.
نعم.
الو نعم.
تفضل.
طيب اخوكم ابو عمران من بلجيكا.
تفضل يا ابا عمران. اول شيء السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام. من معي؟
معك الشيخ فواز.
طيب والله لقد ارسلني احد الاخوه رساله فيها ردود او شيء من البيان في اليقين على انكم تتبرؤوا من جماعتنا في هولندا. السؤال والله السؤال بسيط جدا. ما هي المخالفة الشرعية التي قمنا بها؟
حضرتك أبو عمران؟
أيوة.
يا أبا عمران، يعني ممكن تسمح لي بهدوء. أولا أنت أين درست الشريعة؟
طيب القضية مش قضية أبو
لا طول بالك.
لا.
الآن أنت هولندا ستقول لك تعال طبق الشريعة. أنا أسألك، أنت عندك علم بالشريعة؟
الحمد لله في علماء، نعم سبحان الله.
لا مش علماء، أنت اللي طالبت بأنك تريد ترفرف راية التوحيد على قصر الملكة في هولندا.
والله أنا آسف جدا لكن يعني هذا يعني إيش دخل هذا في هذا؟
لا أبو عمران،
أنت
أبو عمران اصبر بهدوء. شوف الآن أنت لا أنا الجن بإيدي ولا الجن بإيدك. أنت يا أبو عمران الشيء اللي عم تعملوه أنتم تتسببون بكارثة للمسلمين هنا في هولندا وفي بلجيكا. هذا عملكم لا علاقة له بالشريعة ولا بالجهاد، ولا أخلاقكم أخلاق الشريعة ولا أخلاق الجهاد. بارك الله فيك.
Let's speak about this الإسلام أنتم مرتدين يا الإسلام اسمكم في الإسلام يا مرتدين يا عدو الله إن الحب إلا لله إن الحب إلا لله إن الحب إلا لله يا مرتدين خلاص يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا اليهود
الشرعية يا شيخ
يعني أخبرك أن تسمع إلي.
نعم.
النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لما أرسل يا أخي إلى كسرى قال له من محمد رسول الله إلى كسرى عظيم الروم، ما قال له إلى عدو الله عدو الروم سنأتي ونكسر رأسك. هذا ليس هذا أسلوب للتعامل مع البشر. بارك الله فيك.
كان كسرى يقتل المسلمين ويحارب المسلمين في داخل الفرس.
وأنت الآن بلجيكا تقتل المسلمين هنا في بلجيكا؟
الجيش البلجيكي يقتل إخواننا في أفغانستان
خلاص اذهب إلى أفغانستان الله يسهل عليك. لأنه أنتم ناس مجرمين في الحقيقة، أنتم لستم ناس مجاهدين، أنتم مجموعة من القتلة والمفسدين.
Other costs, campaigning, travel and the making of propaganda films like Fitna, are covered by foreign donations from the likes of Lars Hedegaard in Denmark. The money is paid into the bank account of the Foundation for Friends of the PVV. There's only one member on the board of this organization, Geert Wilders. And being the only board member, Wilders is not obliged to reveal details of his financial affairs to anyone but the Dutch Inland Revenue. So it's rather difficult to discover exactly what that money is spent on. However, there's nothing to suggest that he has broken the oath sworn by all Dutch MPs to never accept financial inducements to promote the interests of others.
Wilders.
Van der Valk wanted to ask Wilders some questions about his financial backers.
Meneer Wilders, u wilt vragen? Van Dijk moet je hebben.
But Freedom Party MP Toon van Dijk didn't want to talk to him either. Looking up Geert Wilders and Israel on the internet, Van der Valk finds over 500,000 references. In his early political career, Wilders was a member of the VVD's foreign desk and specialized in Israel. He would visit their embassy in The Hague on numerous occasions. Such was the regularity of these visits that they aroused suspicion. According to the widely read magazine Vrij Nederland, a high-ranking officer in the Dutch Foreign Affairs Department was also concerned that Wilders was constantly asking very detailed questions regarding relations with Israel. In the article, the employee states, "Even though we couldn't prove it, it was obvious that Wilders was being informed by the Israeli embassy." Wilders makes no secret of his great affection for Israel and its people. He has a Jewish grandmother. He married a Hungarian Jewish diplomat and spent time living and working in the Holy Land in his youth. Wilders has admirers in Israel, and he's had access to some of the country's leading politicians, even though his views put him well to the right of some of them. The main foreign policy commitments of his party also center on that country. Wilders believes that the Jewish state is the last line of defense in the war against Europe's Islamization. If Jerusalem falls, Athens and Rome are next, he epically predicts. In his party program, Wilders states that Jordan should become Palestine, a home for the 1 million Palestinians currently living in Israel.
I lived some years in this beautiful country and in the city Jerusalem, and I visited Israel more times than I can count. Israel, the only country in the region with a functioning parliament, with a rule of law, and with free election. The only country in the whole region that shares our values of our Western societies. In fact, is one of the foundations of our Judeo-Christian identity.
In December 2008, Wilders attended a conference in Jerusalem called Facing Jihad.
And we are here today to voice our concern over the growing Islamization of the West. We do it.
Several members of his international network, such as Pamela Geller, are attending.
But what we have to fear most is the creeping Islamization, the stealth jihad. Because every Islamic neighborhood is regarded by many Muslims as building blocks towards a larger goal, and that goal is domination.
I think that he has taken and embraced the idea of modern Zionism. And he's using the platform of modern Zionism to espouse the same concepts about Muslims in the world and the Quran that the Jews cannot afford to say in Israel. But Mr. Wilders can do them a favor and do what? He can go outside of Israel with those same feelings, and then he can characterize, okay, the way that the Zionists characterize the Palestinians to legitimize their power. Mr. Wilders can characterize Islam in the same way, and this is what's taking place.
Hello? Hello? We're looking at financial center. Between us, 2 broken windows. Oh, God!
It was widely reported that men had been celebrating the attack after recording the first plane strike. They were not Al-Qaeda, but they were detained.
I grabbed my binoculars and I could see the towers from my window. And this is where I'm looking. And all of a sudden, down there, I see this van park. And I see 3 guys on top of the van. And I could see that they were like happy. They didn't look shocked to me. They didn't look shocked.
There was a group of Israelis, some of whom later were revealed as Mossad assets, who were arrested after cheering and high-fiving and videotaping the crash of the airplanes into the World Trade Towers.
Several other men were detained after a van full of explosives was stopped outside of Manhattan.
Earlier we had heard that an FBI spokesperson said that there was a report on the George Washington Bridge, which is another facility which you folks are responsible for policing, a report that there had been a van stopped there that had explosives.
Asked this week about another sprawling investigation and the detention of 60 Israelis since September 11th, the Bush administration treated the questions like hot potatoes.
I would just refer you to the Department of Justice with it. I'm not familiar with the report.
I'm aware that some Israeli citizens have been detained. With respect to why they are being detained and the other aspects of your question, whether it's because they are in intelligence services or what they were doing, I will defer to the Department of Justice and the FBI to answer that.
On March 6, 2002, a draft report from the DEA said it may well be an organized intelligence gathering activity. Despite all of this, all the Israelis were let go without any espionage charges being filed.
So this is the logo that won the design. Now, if the viewers, which are clearly, I believe, very intelligent people, when you look at these objects set out here, you will see quite clearly there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's another one immediately in the center. Now, we're talking about 2012. So clearly that would be the 2012. But 2012 are 4 specific objects. That should be all. So there shouldn't be need for anything else. But you can see quite clearly in the center there's a 5th object. So on the face of it, that doesn't make sense. And none of this has been articulated in the mainstream media.
Yes.
Okay? So
we shall explain about these.
Oh, okay, right. So, but when we look at this, things become very much clearer. And what do we have here? Quite clearly, we have Z-I-O-N, Zion.
That matters. Boring? I don't think so. It was the Spaniards who were off to a dream start in this one. 14 minutes in, they forge ahead. Great work from Cesc Fabregas.
This is day 3, London, and we're off to...
Finish line in Paris won't mind that. It looks very likely they'll get to see a piece of cycling history. On paper, Bradley Wiggins is hurtling towards the Tour de France title.
Sarah, tell Daddy where we're going. We're going to Big Ben. That's right, Big Ben. Oh, there it is, sweetie. It's right there. Honey, are you getting this?
For the best part of the last 50 years, the Higgs boson, or the God particle as it's sometimes called, has been basically the holy grail.
Honey, are you getting this? Honey, are you getting this?
Of scientific endeavour, but what is it and what uses could it possibly have? To tell me a little bit more about this, I'm joined by Professor André Galutfen.
Daddy, look over here! Look at me, Daddy! She's really hyper today. Sarah, don't go too far. That's your daughter. You know she gets that from you. That's your daughter. You know she gets that from you. Birds! Look, Mommy, there's birds! That's your daughter. You know she gets that from you.
Yeah. Birdman. Yeah. Just like that.
Ben destroyed as a UFO crash lands in central London.
That's your daughter. You know she gets that from you.
Greenwich Mean Time. Chemical attacks were triggered across Europe. I repeat, Downing Street is within the... 22 Greenwich Mean Time. Chemical attacks were triggered across Europe. I repeat, Downing Street is within the... 22 Greenwich... Greenwich Mean Time. Chemical attacks were triggered across...
O Muslims, let me tell you something that you should need to know. There's a report that's been put out. This report has been developed in America. It is what most of the governments in the world today are using as a ruler and a parameter to judge Muslims. The non-Muslims who consider themselves as authorities and experts on Islam and Muslims have observed the following. Listen to this, please. The Muslims in the world are divided into the following basic socio-political groups: Asians, Arabs, Africans, those of the Far East, those of the Near East, those of European, American, and Australian backgrounds, although those are of the minority, those of Slavic and Russian backgrounds, although they are also a negligible population, and those of South America. This is what they said. Look how they divide us. Our objective is to polarize these ethnic groups. That means to keep these ethnic groups from uniting together and exploit their cultural differences. In this way, we can maximize our global agenda and we can minimize any global threat from them. Not only have they classified us, but they have also come up with a formula to deal with every category and how to create hostility and opposition between the different categories. They have determined that the greatest threat
to Western civilization and the continued dominance of Western culture is to make sure that the Muslims never reestablish a global identity and that there is no opportunity ever, ever, ever for them to reestablish the Khilafah. The Prophet ﷺ established a model of government that lasted from that time all the way to 1924. From that time, in the 7th century, to 1924, 1,200 years. And that model of government will come back. It will return.
You've been warning of something called a new Islamic caliphate. What is that, and why do you believe it's closer to becoming a reality?
And this is a term that every one of our viewers need to know because they're going to be hearing it more and more in the months to come. What the Islamic caliphate is basically, Charlene, a union, if you can imagine it, of every Islamic nation into one all-powerful military, economic, political force. Now, there's some 57 Islamic nations in the world, so you can imagine how strong the so-called caliphate would be. The last time we saw it was in 1924. It was disbanded back then. The Turkish Ottoman Empire led the last caliphate.
The army of the Khilafah was undefeatable. They could not understand the Crusaders when they go to fight the Khilafah. Even the Christians who live in the Khilafah are fighting the Crusaders. They cannot understand this. Our own brothers in religion, the Christians, are fighting for the Khilafah. They could not understand that power. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, we have left nothing. We have left nothing out of this book. Has come to deal with every single matter. But the kuffar, they worked hard to separate the deen from the state. The British destroyed the Khilafah with the help of Mustafa Kemal. The British government, who worked tirelessly to destroy the Khilafah and works tirelessly today to prevent its return.
مهما صنعوا هذا الدين متمكن في القلوب وهي تونس اليوم تعود إلى الإسلام بكل قوة وهذا من علامات نصرة الله تعالى لهذا الدين أن يمحص الله تعالى الناس تحت حكام ظلمة ليخرج الله تعالى من أصلابهم من يعبد الله وحده لا شريك له ثم ينصر الله تعالى بهم دينه ويعلي شريعته يقين والله أن هذا الدين منصور وأنه ظاهر وها هي المثلات اليوم نراها بين أيدينا وأمام أعيننا تدلنا على أن هذا الدين ظاهر وما هي بإذن الله تعالى إلا مدة يسيرة وترى ما قاله النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لما قال في الحديث الصحيح تكون النبوة فيكم ما شاء الله أن تكون ثم يرفعها الله إذا شاء أن يرفعها ثم تكون خلافة ما شاء الله أن تكون ثم يرفعها الله إذا شاء يرفعها ثم يكون ملكا عضوضا ما شاء الله أن يكون ثم يرفعه الله إذا شاء يرفعه ثم يكون ملكا جبريا يكون ملكا جبريا ما شاء الله أن يكون ثم يرفعه الله إذا شاء يرفعه ثم قال ثم تكون خلافة على منهاج النبوة وها نحن نترقب اليوم الخلافة التي على منهاج النبوة.
It's hard to believe that this area here was once considered the birthplace of civilization because you look at it now and it just doesn't at all seem that way.
You'd think they'd have their...
Whoa!